Today on FAS TV, we're back in Caithness to hear about contracting. Andrew Mackay and family at West Greenland Farm discuss their contracting enterprise, which involves silage and cereal harvest, while also getting fields ready for their next crop. And we hear from Willie Mackay at Biggins Farm about how GPS soil sampling and spreading of fertiliser and lime can be cost-effective to farmers and crofters across Scotland. We're back with Andrew Mackay at West Greenland Farm, where the contracting enterprise is based. Contracting allows farmers and crofters to bring in a team of people with the correct machinery, which may be more cost-effective rather than buying their own machinery.
Father started contracting in 1960. 1960s with a square baler. It evolved in then square baling hay, and as we moved on into silage in the 70s, he started precision chopping silage. I suppose that's what probably half our work was precision chop silage. He started silaging, as I say, in the late 70s, and it sort of grew through the 80s. And as we came into the 90s, we made a step into self-propelled machinery, like the harvester we have behind us, which is fairly new. Acres have fluctuated up and down as cows have come and gone and stock numbers have reduced, but we'll still be chopping probably in the guts of 3,000 acres. There's obviously myself, my two brothers, my father. They sort of semi-retired. He helps us the odd day when we're stuck for a driver. We've got 3 guys self-employed who start with us at the start of silage season. 1 guy stays on with us right up until sort of end of November till all the cattle are housed. The other 2 guys, they tend to go back to, one's a farmer's son, goes back to farm. The other guy goes back off to a job he does then for the rest of the season. The machinery costs in silage, for silage, and I don't believe a farmer can do it themselves at a speed, equality of workmanship, and the timing that we can do it all in. We come with the most modern fleet that you can possibly have, and we try to be reliable and cost effective for farmers, which is all very important nowadays when farmers are saying, oh, our cows aren't paying. Well, my belief as a farmer and as a contractor, but as a farmer, put my farmer hat on, I can't see how can a farmer buy a machine like this to cut his own grass. Probably wouldn't buy something like this, but how can they do it when we can come in and be out in a day and a half? In addition to silage, the next probably big job for us is combine harvesting. We run three class combines. We would cut somewhere in the region of 2,000 acres of spring crops. Bulk of that being spring barley, either for feeding or for malting. And we all cut some oat. We cut about 600 acre oats as well. We bale straw. Not a lot of baling of straw. We have a lot of straw to bale for our own use. We do bale straw for some people and some hay. We also do a lot of spring crop drilling, combination drilling with a 6 metre lempkin, grain and fertiliser outfit. We would probably sow somewhere 1,000 acres, 1,200 acres plus all spring season. Very short season in this part of the world, hence why we tend to have slightly bigger machinery than what you would need if you went 150 miles further south. We would have a 3 or a 4 week window to do it, whereas the guys in the south would have a 5 or a 6 week window. Going on then from that, we do a lot of grass seed. We sow a grass harrow for conventional reseeds. We've also dipped our toe into a bit of direct drilling. We have bought a guttler drill 2 years ago. It's been very successful for us in overseeding, sowing in stubbles after harvest. If folk get an early harvest, we would go into that stubble field and establish grass seeds straight in the stubbles for them. It's working tremendously very well. Sow a lot of turnips with it in the back end, or stubble turnips after barley or maybe in a burnt off grass field. It's something I see a bit of a future for us in, because the cost of ploughing, as costs are rising, we have to drive a cost out somewhere. So I see that maybe establishing grass seed in a different direction is maybe something to do. Plus, there's also a bonus: nobody wants to lift stones. So if we can direct drill straight in a grass field that's been sprayed off, you don't have to pick the stones. So that has to be a win-win for everybody. We hire out some machinery as well. So we've got a big dung spreader here. We hire it out by day rate. We hire out trailers, dump trailers, flat trailers. Just any kind of work. We spread slurry, we spread dung, we do anything that anybody wants done. The area we would cover from the base here at West Greenland, we would cover as far as Durness, which is about 80 miles away. We do silage on a farm in Durness. And we would go as far as Helmsdale, probably south. So you're talking 80 miles along the north coast on the NC 500 and probably 60 miles down the east coast. Not many jobs doing that way. To be fair, bulk of our work is probably within 20-mile radius of where we are. But we will travel for work, we will go and do it. If it needs to be done, we will go and do it.
Finding your passion is important to keep you motivated in farming, and there are many important events throughout the farming calendar which Andrew enjoys.
What would get me out of bed to get me motivation? Sun coming up in the morning, to be honest. I'm very passionate about agriculture. Anybody will tell you. I live it, I breathe it, I have done for 30 years. What advice would I give to a young person getting into this? Firstly, buy a lottery ticket and hope it comes up, because unless you're born into this, it's very, very difficult to get in. The sheer amount of capital you need, not only to buy the farm, to stock it, if you want to buy some machinery, it's not going to be hard. It's not an easy thing to get into, but if you want to get into it, do it. But pick something you enjoy, because if you enjoy it and are passionate about it, you stand a bit of a chance of maybe making some money. I love sitting on a tractor, drilling barley, cutting grass, seeing other farms, seeing what other people are doing, taking ideas from these other farms home. Good ideas, some are bad ideas, but you can always learn something. Every day, every farm, no matter how small or how big, you might see something that you can learn from. And I think you need to look at that. Favourite time of year has to be putting a load of fat cattle on a lorry, to be honest. Or harvest, or spring, or summer. Just all of it. You know. Don't like the wind and the wet maybe too much, but go away on holiday to get rid of it.
Succession can be a difficult conversation to have with family. However, it's important for businesses to look to the future.
The older generation, I think, need to be admired. They need to be respected. I think we were very, very fortunate from a young age to be very involved in the business. From basically when I came home as a 16-year-old, we were involved in what was going on and getting more and more involved. And my father will quite openly tell you, and he'll tell anybody, that in the last 20 plus years, it's been us that have been running the business. You know, he was still probably head of the business, but we were running it. We were making the decisions of what was happening, what was going forward. And I think, you know, a lot of people talk about succession, and I think succession is in the hands of the fathers and the mothers to let the sons and the daughters get involved in the business. But they have to let them have their ideas. They have to give them a bit of rope, but they have to maybe keep a hold of a bit of rope to make sure that it works, because you could see a farm being handed to a generation and then sold, and it takes 2 generations or 3 generations to build a business. It takes 1 to get rid of it. 1 generation can lose it. I've seen people in my generation involved in agriculture, you know, my age, they've been involved working with their fathers, and seeing, it quite upsets me actually to see some of those sons who have a bit of drive, they have a bit of ambition, but they're being held back by their parents because their parents won't allow them to develop the farm, to maybe change some ideas, and the sons and daughters as well, they're fellow ideas that are probably maybe not to the liking of the elder generation, but they're a modern way, and the older generation don't see it. And I'm not knocking or kicking anybody, but I think that's wrong. You know, I hope when it comes to my time to hand it to the next generation, I can be as good as what my father has been to me.
What advice does Andrew have for young farmers and people wanting to enter the industry?
People wanting to enter the industry, I think good luck to them. Come and speak to me, I would give advice to anybody. But you have to be willing to listen to the advice. There's no point, I was told by another old elderly farmer once, it's okay to ask for advice. Yeah, you should always ask for advice, but ask a person that's A, probably running a profitable business, B, that's making a good job of what they're doing, and listen to their advice. And if you're not going to listen to it and act on it, don't ask for it. You must listen to your elders, because your elders, they've done it all. My father will tell you in the 1960s and the 1970s, they were paddock grazing dairy cows. What are we doing now in 2022, 2023? We're paddock grazing cows. It's been done before. So listen to them. They have done it. They know how to do it. Get advice from them. They'll tell you how to do it.
Soil health and fertility is an important topic on any farm or croft in Scotland. As fertiliser prices have increased, GPS soil sampling has become more popular to ensure that fertiliser and lime are being utilised more efficiently. Willie Mackay and his family from Biggins Farm in Caithness have beef cattle for fattening, pedigree sheep, and alongside the livestock enterprises, the Mackays have diversified into contracting.
We're running about 400 acre roughly all in. We're running 100 cows, mainly Hereford Friesian breed cows. My father is North Country Cheviot sheep, Charlie Bull to the Hereford Friesian cows for fattening. Father tries to sell them through the ring as tops or yow hogs. Fat cattle mainly goes to Monroe's Dingwall. We diversified as I got a chance about 15 years ago to take over a spreading contract from a company. As time has gone on, things has developed, so we've decided now to go into GPS, soil sampling and variable rate spreading, as there's been a few asking about it. We started contracting because as I left school, there wasn't enough for me to do here at home, so I went off and worked with a boy who did contracting. We did that for a few years. I then moved to another place what did lime spreading. They felt it wasn't really their kind of work, so I got a chance to take over their lime spreading business. We'll cover roughly Caithness and we'll go into Sutherland. We've started going into Sutherland this last fall. We kind of went in like as people have been asking more and more about it. As I always say, if you don't move forward, you're left behind. But it's a cost of everything. Fertiliser and applying lime is really going to help your fertiliser. And it's applying it at the right stages and the right places on the field instead of just blowing it somewhere. To get into the GPS variable rate, we're actually doing a GPS soil sampling for Soil Frontier. So if customers wish to either contact myself or Soil, we then take it from there. They send a map of the field off to Soil. They make up a file. They then send it back to myself and we put it into a laptop GPS machine on the quad bike. We then go out to the field, go right round the field, mapping out the field, and that then tells us exactly where to go to take the samples for every hectare. And we take 16 cores of soil at every sample round that point. Our work covers mostly arable ground, but this last few years I have seen us doing a lot more estate work for keeping deer and stuff like that. You know. The benefits for using GPS technology, I would say it was saving money, which all farmers knows is a great thing. We can pinpoint the bad areas in the fields what's needing a bit more treatment than the other bits of fields. I would say traditional farming up here really hasn't changed so much over the years. It's maybe getting a bit more modernised and there's new developments the whole time with younger generations coming in and they're trying to push their way in and they're making more use of the technology of what's out there now. We went to the contracting side of diversification just as we're needing machinery ourselves for work on the farm, and it just makes more use of the machinery that we've got. And the opening was there at that time for my lime spreading, so we went ahead and did that. Biggest challenge for setting it up was probably the cost and getting everyone convinced that this was the maybe way forward. But I would say that would be the main thing, is convincing people. We went round convincing people just by word of mouth to start with, and then we got involved with Soil Frontier. We're working alongside with them with the sampling, and we organised a meeting, a local meeting for the local farmers, for customers that I kind of do had all the chance to come to it, and it seemed to promote the thing quite well. I would never say that we're not going to expand any further. Just now we're at our kind of limit, but we are certainly going to move forward until technology, and as they say, the doors is never shut. Trying to convince people that lime spreading is the right thing to do. To me, lime spreading and drainage is your two main aspects of keeping ground in good order. If your pH isn't right, you're not going to get the full use of your fertiliser, which is going to be cost. And with the price of costing a fertiliser, it's a main conversation for everywhere we go just now. It's trying to get people encouraged that a lime is actually going to cut back their fertiliser costs.
GPS soil sampling allows for more precious data about which areas of the field require fertiliser or lime, which comes with a cost benefit to a farmer or crofter.
There is some places that we've done testing for, and they would probably go in and say put 2 tonne an acre onto a 15 acre field, say, so that's 30 tonne. We could be cutting that by half if it's all getting placed in the right places. It's probably cutting my costings down as well, but it's helping the farmer. 3 main things to recommend to anyone who's thinking about going into diversification is make sure the work is there, make sure it's going to be cost effective for you and your customer, and have a good customer base relationship. If I had to explain to farmers what main benefits would be, it would be looking at the soil sampling on the maps. It really is quite fascinating why the different bits of the fields need different amount here, and I usually show them maps of our own fields, and that explains where it's going to go and why.
Why has GPS soil sampling and spreading become popular with farmers and crofters?
Our customers, I would say, would be mainly looking for cutting costs. Why waste the stuff when it can be placed in the right place in a field, where it's needed, when it's needed. It was really for cost cutting that has promoted this more than anything.
Hello, I'm Tiffany McTaggart bringing you this week's Rural Roundup. The store cattle trade is currently booming, so there's lots of happy farmers around. We've also reached the end of the NVZ close period, so farmers are getting out onto the fields, managing to spread some muck, and there's also potential to spread some fertiliser. So just be careful though, don't go out too early. It's very easy for there to still be another hard frost. Just now is also a great time to stop and have a think about any greening requirements that you have for your single application form this year. It's better to have a think now before you go and plough that last field, just so that you know if there's any additional requirements, so you can make alterations to your plan for the year to make sure that you have enough greening. Don't get caught out. Vaccinations, there have been some reports of people struggling to get vaccinations, so do plan ahead, make sure you know what you're needing when you're needing it. Don't go out and stockpile too early, because some of the vaccinations have a short expiry date and you don't want any going to waste. The deadline's coming up for making your claim for preparing for sustainable farming for 2022. So the claims deadline is the 28th of February. This is for work that got carried out from the 1st of January through to the 31st of December 2022. So make sure you get your claim in if you haven't already. Same applies for the Sustainable Agricultural Capital Grant Scheme. The deadline is the 28th of February. Don't forget to include your geotagged photograph of the equipment that you purchased on your farm, all in place. There has been a change to preparing for sustainable farming for 2023. There is a new section that's been added. It's for animal health and welfare interventions. So this is promoting having healthy and productive herds and flocks. So this is for work that's carried out from the 1st of January and completed by the 31st of December 2023, and claims need to be made by the 28th of February 2024. So for this, you can get a standard capital cost for up to 2 of the different options. So it's £250 for each option that you claim for, and you can claim 2 of them. So there's 7 different options which can be claimed for as part of this. So for the cattle, you can apply for pre-breeding bull examination. So you can go and get your semen testing done on your bulls and use that, but make sure you also have the actions which are taking place after that, whether you're selling your bull or maybe retesting at a later point once you change your management. So it's important to have both the initial testing as well as then the advice and implementation of a plan following that. There's also funding available for cough respiration. So I know a lot of people have had issues with pneumonia, so potentially having a look at your pneumonia issue is an option. On the sheep side, there's one of the options is for looking at iceberg diseases and identifying if they're an issue on your farm. Should you find that they are, you'll need an implementation plan and an action plan for trying to get rid of it. There's also funding available for identifying if you've got a sheep scab, so you'll need to take samples of blood from 12 sheep within the flock. If there's got different batches, you'll need to do it from different batches as well to identify if there's sheep scab on your farm. The other sheep option is for sheep lameness, so it's looking into what the causes of lameness are and trying to get rid of it in your flock, and having an action plan to try and get rid of lameness issues. So there's a further 2 options which are both available to the sheep and the cattle. One is for liver fluke, and the other is for gastrointestinal parasites, so this is looking at worms. So both of these you'll be looking at doing things like fecal egg counts, as well as looking at worm efficacy or flucicide efficacy. So it's definitely worth having a look at what options are available, have a think about what options could potentially be beneficial to your farm, and make sure you match these up. You do need to have a form filled in by an expert advisor, somebody out with your business who is a professional, for example your vet or your consultant, and they'll be able to provide you with advice on what to do, what management practices to implement after you've done your investigation as well. When you first claim for animal health and welfare interventions, there's also an additional £250 available for your own personal CPD. So this is allowing you an opportunity to go and learn more about diseases and issues that could be affecting your farm and find out more about them. This could be through talking to your vet or attending a meeting, but it's just a way for you to go and learn more about these issues. So for 2023, the soil sampling and carbon audits are still also available. So if you didn't go and do them in 2022, you can do them in 2023. And with soil sampling, even if you have claimed in 2022, you're eligible to claim again in 2023. Avian influenza is still an issue. Make sure you keep your ears open for reports if it's in your local area, as you'll have higher biosecurity measures to be put in place. Make sure if you've got any kind of poultry that you have good biosecurity measures in place anyway to try and minimise the impact and likelihood of catching avian influenza. So make sure you're having clean waterproofs, make sure you're disinfecting hard surfaces, and try and keep on top of biosecurity measures. If you do go and find a dead bird of prey or 3 dead waterfowl, make sure you go and report this as well. We need to know where it's being found. Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed listening to me, why not have a listen to Rural Roundup podcast, which will be available from your usual podcast supplier, and you'll be able to get a fortnightly update on what is happening in agriculture. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again next time.